Hello and welcome to Screencast on Australian rules football. So last lesson we looked at the characteristics of Australia as a country. Today's lesson is going to be focused, or your next lesson is going to be focused on Australian rules football in particular. So what we have to know about Australian rules football specifically is that we need to know where it originates from, like we did with American football. We then have a look at some statistics that show how much Australian rules football has grown. And finally, we have to look at the factors that underpinned or shaped the development of the sport. So, we'll look at a little bits of videos and stuff tomorrow in your next lesson. But first up then, we need to kind of split up these three things. Now, the link statistic I'll talk about in the lesson. But tonight's screencast will look at what are the origins, where did it originate from, and what factors specifically shape the development. Okay, so starting off then, origins of Australian rules football. So basically, these are the key things. It was created when, you're going to need kind of these questions again that we talked about before, the W questions. So the first one I'm going to look at is when. Well, it was created in 1850s, where in the state of Victoria. Who created it? A man called Tom Wills, an Englishman, and basically this guy was schooled at a rugby school under Dr. Thomas Arnold. You might remember looking at rugby school when we looked at how private schools or public schools shape the development of sport. He was one of Dr. Arnold's kind of disciples, I suppose, and he took with him this sport of rugby to Australia, and then they created their own game spin-off. So, why was it initially created? Well, it was created as a winter training program for cricketers. So, cricket was the main sport they focused on, but it was thought as a way to keep them fit when they were in their off-season. Now, where was it played? It was played on cricket ovals, and you'll still see now Australian rules football is the kind of winter sport when cricket is not on, so it's still played in cricket ovals. And what was it a combination of? Well, there's a combination, there's two schools of thought on this. The first one, and the main one, is a combination of rugby and an Aboriginal leaping game. So the native indigenous population, Aboriginals, had a leaping game that kind of linked with rugby, as obviously Tom Wills came back with the sport of rugby, and they added it to this Aboriginal leaping game. Now, there was a second school of thought when it came to the origins of Aussie rules football, and that was to do with a combination of rugby and Gaelic football. However, this link has proved tenuous, and what tenuous means is lacking validity, because basically Gaelic football officially was created after Aussie rules football. So the link was tenuous because it's impossible to have a sport as a prerequisite of Aussie rules football if it wasn't created. So basically that is kind of very tenuous, and it's not always given much credence. However, if this, as expected, is a 10-mark question, it just gives you an opportunity to expand, to give an extra bit of knowledge. So your first part of Aussie rules football, you're asking these questions: when, who, why, where, what. They're the key things we're asking. Lots of W questions. If you can answer those, you're in on the origins. So what we're looking for then is, from there, we need to look at certain factors that have shaped the development of Aussie rules football. So what is it that has made it into this huge sport? And I'll give you some statistics to show how big it is tomorrow. First thing, it's heavily involved with the media. So what we're saying here is that it's a national sport, which we'll look at in a separate thing. And due to it being a people's sport, and I think that's a really important thing, is you're kind of saying, it's like the association football in England. It's what the lower class or the working class people would like to watch. Therefore, it's got huge links to kind of TV stations. For example, Fox Sports is the key station or broadcaster in Australia, and that is the one that has the rights for Australian rules football. It's a multi-million-dollar contract. So that just shows you're saying media. What we need to be able to say is it's a successful media product. Fox Sports, multi-million-dollar contract. This shows some extra knowledge on that. So going from there, next thing, commercialism. Australian rules football is linked to commercialism. It's run as a business, just like American football. The golden triangle is embedded with it. So I put on here some examples you could use. So companies such as Toyota, they are an example of a sponsor within that golden triangle. Then you go on from there. So obviously the sponsor will allow exposure, and also it'll put money into Australian rules football. So we looked at media up there as part of the golden triangle. So going on from there. It's also huge in Australia because it's taught in schools. So Australian rules football is part of the curriculum. So this will lead to increased participation. So young people are really keen to take part in this as it's taught in schools, as rugby or football would be taught in English schools. Then you're going on from there. There are also clear progression pathways. So schools in each every school in a state will have a link to the kind of state Aussie rules football team. So if you were like I'll put in here Melbourne as an example. So if you're like a high school student in Melbourne, you would have a direct link, like a satellite program that goes straight into the Melbourne Devils, which is the Australian rules football franchise. So you've got that in there. Hopefully that makes sense. E.g., if you transferred it to rugby here, you would have Worcester Warriors would have an ACE program here. Similar thing happens in Australia. Going on from there, there's exhibition matches. Now, exhibition matches are kind of, if you imagine, I'm doing a parallel here. So in America, they have exhibition matches. So they have exhibition matches in London. So this is to kind of get a worldwide audience on Aussie rules football. Now, exhibition matches in Australia, they have them all over Australia and New Zealand to kind of change the locations where games are. So it increases exposure, awareness, and interest of the sport. Also, conversion is a key. Many Australian players, it's like, you know, if you get the option to play a sport in Australia and you're good at everything, people tend to go for Aussie rules football. The reason why is because it's where the money is. It's where the sponsorship is. It's where the media coverage is. You have celebrity status. So many players switch is the kind of other thing for that. Switch codes. So you have certain codes of football. So what you have: rugby football union, you have association football, and you have Aussie rules football. They are all codes of football. However, a lot of these players switch codes from rugby or association football to Aussie rules football for the reasons I said earlier. Going on from that, it is a game for all. So this really helps shape the development of the game. So because anyone can play. So basically, larger players would have kind of be ruckmen, okay, so that'd be a similar kind of terminology as rugby, whereas the smaller players could play as a wing. There is also a specific competition for over 35s called Super Rules, so if you want to put that in, that gives you an extra bit of development for Game for All. It's Australia's national game, okay, so it is and I'm going to change this into one session, it is the people's sport, therefore it has extreme popularity. I think a separate section maybe than Australia's national game, you could also have bush culture. It's got real inextricable links with this kind of bush culture ideology where, you know, survival of the fittest in the bush in early Australian times links to the kind of survival of the fittest required to take part in Australian rules football. Next thing, it is the highest participation rate for the Aboriginal demographic. So it's a real opportunity for Aboriginal people to go from rags to riches, from extreme poverty to kind of riches. So it creates role models for young people to take part in it for specifically Aboriginal people. So they're your key things. We've got a couple of factors that shape the development, and we've also got origins. What I need in your core now notes, I understand this is quite a long one, but I need them sorted. Tomorrow's lesson will allow me to show you videos, also look at splitting origins, factors that shape the development, and then we'll also have a look at those statistics that show the growth of Aussie rules football. Thank you.